Well, this year sees the 50th anniversary of the release of the Paul McCartney, or Paul and Linda McCartney album, as it was then, Ram. And I suppose that over the years, there's been a lot of people latched onto that album. It was a great album, I thought, when I first heard it, but the critics hated it. And I always remember thinking that they had it in for Paul. And we're joined today by Denny Seiwell, who's the drummer, a founder member of Wings, along with Linda and Paul, Denny Lane, and he also played on the Ram album. And we're joined by Fernando Perdomo, who has concocted and created and lovingly tendered this wonderful tribute called Ram On. Hi guys, great to see you both today.
Always pleased to see you, brother.
If I can start with you, Denny, 50 years ago, I mean, does it seem like 50 years since you were doing the original sessions for Ram?
Well, yeah, a little bit more, actually. No. Yeah, when Fernando told me, do you know that it's the 50th anniversary of Ram? I went, oh my God. I had no idea. I knew a long time passed, you know, I put a little gray in the hair for character here, but I didn't have any idea it was 50 years. Jesus. So
yeah, well, I guess you live it, don't you? You live it and you do things, and that's it. You don't refer back to it every day after you've done it. It's time passes, and
exactly.
The tempus fugit, I guess. I mean, time passes very quickly sometimes without you realizing. The thing about Ram, and you'll be able to tell me this because obviously you were part of it. At that time, all of the Beatles they seemed to be trying to get away from the Beatles as much as they can. I call it the beardy years. They all grew long, big beards, long hair, and it seemed to me that they were trying to get away from the Beatles. And I think all of them were successful because they didn't look anything like they did during their heyday. But the thing about Ram, it came in for such a trashing really from the press. And I remember when I first got it, and I must have been about 13 when I got it, and I thought, was this the same album I'm reading about? Because I mean, okay, Paul got the blame for splitting the Beatles. I mean, the truth is, they all had their hand in the pot, I'm afraid, when it came to that, you know. But I mean, how was it for you? Was there any feeling of that? Well, I mean, what did Paul look like when you met him? I know it sounds silly to ask that, but I'm thinking, because he did seem to be very much almost looking like the wild man of Borneo, didn't he, at one point? This huge beard and...
Yeah, well, I think you said it yourself. You said the press had it in for him. They just had it in for him. And speaking of that, we were up the farm during that period when he grew the big beard, you know, and he decided to have a little fun with it. So we were going down to London or somewhere, but it was time to shave it off. So he shaved it off, but he'd leave a clump here and a clump here and a clump here. It was really hilarious. I wish we didn't have iPhones then, or we'd take pictures of them, but it's brilliant, you know. But yeah, I think the press was so hard on, and it, like you said as well, I mean, everybody had a part in the breakup, the dissolution of the Beatles. It wasn't all Paul, although the way we were sheltered from that, totally sheltered. But the way Paul did kind of allude to what was happening was, he told me maybe in private one day, if he didn't follow through and sue the other three Beatles, this joker, Alan Klein, would come in and steal them millions and millions of dollars from them. So it was his duty to save the Beatles. You know, that's what he was doing, knowing that one day, you know, they're all mates. They're going to play together again. Time will straighten this out. Little did he know that John wouldn't be here, and then George would die, you know. But still in all, I believe that the premise was right, and I believe that he was right for doing what he did.
Well, even John Lennon said that in 1973, when John, George, and Ringo dispensed with Alan Klein, and somebody asked him why, and he said, "Well, let's just say Paul might have been right," which is as near for John to say Paul was right. I mean, you know, because he was very, you know, John didn't want to give an inch on anything. Right. But I mean, that's as good as saying, Paul, you were right. But I guess at the time, the album, it came together. It started at the end of 70, went on to March 71. I mean, when you were hearing these songs, and I've seen the video where you're talking about Another Day, and there's you and Dave Spinoza in there, and you're hearing this song, and because Paul just played either guitar piano or electric guitar, and you're hearing these songs, and when it started changing in the middle, you went, wow, hang on, this is something else. I mean, at
Yeah.
the end of the day, he was Paul McCartney.
Oh yeah. No, we were used to playing with a lot of big acts, you know, but oh my God, when Paul sings a song and plays a guitar, he really gets your attention, you know. And
Yeah.
so sad, all of a sudden it goes from 4/4 to 3/4, and I look over at Spinoza. I said, "Wow, we're gonna have fun with this."
See, the thing is, for me, and I'm sure Fernando as well, all these stories are like, wow, I love hearing all this stuff. Well, look, I mean, with working on this album with Denny, Fernando, you must have heard all the stories, and it's got to be exciting.
Making this record, I lost my mind pretty much, because it's like, wow, you know, all these incredible stories, and a lot of things that I didn't know, that I wanted to make sure people knew these stories. And that's why we're doing this video series where we're talking about each song, because it really blew my mind that, you know, I mean, look, Denny was there, had the best seat in the house, five feet away from Paul, you know, who had just written these songs. And it's an incredible thing that he was there for the genesis of the songs. And one of the things that blew my mind is that Paul, even days after meeting Denny, already had trust in Denny to come up with the drum parts. And every drum part on Ram is a Denny Seiwell original. So it's really freaking cool. And I love it. It's just incredible, and the songs are insane.
Well, I know you as a musician. You're an extremely talented musician, but, and you'll agree with me on this, I'm sure. When I listen to the original songs, they sound really simple. But when you start to deconstruct and go, I think I'm going to learn this song, you go, my God, this isn't as simple as I thought it was. There's a lot goes into, and you think that's the trick. It sounds simple, but it's really involved.
The songs are works of art. Ram really stands up to this day as a perfect album that has just so many interesting elements. And you know, in many ways it made it a challenge to recreate, but it also it everybody that's on this record loves the record, and we all embraced some of the best parts of the record, and really, you know, it made it easy for us to put it together, because we know every second of the record. Everything is special to us. You know, this is a really special record.
How did you choose the people to work with, and the vocalist and that? Because it's got to be a hard choice, because whilst a lot of people may love the album, to actually perform on it and sing it, as I said, is not easy. And particularly on Another Day, the guy you've got, is it Gordon on there? And Gordon it's Michael. Like, wow, Gordon, yeah. I mean, what a great
Denny
voice.
Put a lot of trust in me. Denny put a lot of trust in me, and then he also provided a few people. But you know, I've worked with a lot of great musicians over the last 20 years of my career, and I kind of remembered everybody that I've had conversations about Ram with. And immediately I contacted them and said, okay, we're doing this, let's do this. Now, Gordon Michaels, that's a really interesting story. I'm always record collecting. I'm always looking for records. And I found this album that he did called Stargazer that I remember buying it because two reasons. Number one, he looked cool as hell on the cover. Number two, I saw that it was produced by Hugh McCracken, the other guitar player on Ram. So I was like, I saw a bunch of really cool names on it: Tony Levin, Jerry Murata, Richard T. And I was like, okay, this is going to be good. I was blown away by the record. But track 3 on the record, which is called Indoor Lovers, reminded me a lot of Another Day. And in fact, it's in the same key. So even though that record was recorded, you know, back in 1979, I knew that he had the perfect voice for it. And we had been in touch because I wanted to work with him anyway. And when he sent in that vocal, we were blown away. I mean, he is the perfect choice for that. And he did a great job. And I have to say that one of the things that Denny said was, you know, if he was going to be part of this, he would have final say. And in the end, all the decisions that were made for singers are incredibly good. And
Yeah.
you know, this record isn't just a tribute record. I mean, it's really a labor of love, and everybody that's on it sings with passion. And
Yeah.
that's something that's missing on a lot of tribute records, because I feel like, I mean, I understand why many tribute records are kind of full of flavors of the month or famous people that will sell the record, but might not necessarily be the perfect person for the song. And
Yeah, I mean, I've got a thing about tribute albums, and I'm not a massive fan. And the reason being is I'm thinking, I've got the original. Why do I need a tribute? Okay, maybe it's okay for those involved, but it's got to be something really special for me. And this is really special.
I'd love to just stop there for 1 second, because yeah, when I was approached with this idea of doing the whole Ram thing, I said, why the hell would anybody try to do another? It's perfection. I mean, it's a masterpiece. I don't know about this. But then, you know, Fernando had called me in. We said, hey, what are you doing? You want to just come up to the studio? I just laid down the track, Too Many People, and some people never know. I went, yeah, I like those songs. What did you do it for? He says, just for the hell of it. He says, come on up and put drums on them. I went,
yeah,
okay. So I went up and I sat down in his kit. It was all tuned. All I had to do was like grab my sticks and play. And he played the track. I went, oh my God, this is so good. This is like the real thing. And when I finished those 2 tracks, I thought about it until it was maybe a year later that we started on Ram. But when he said, let's do the whole album, I didn't have to worry about it. I trusted him. I knew that his musical taste, this was so much like the original track. It had the embodiment, the vibe, and the spirit of the original. And I knew that by me playing the drums, the original drum parts on all these tracks, it would give it that, and the rest would be easy. And it was.
yeah. It was such an organic, incredible experience to do this. And the thing about it also is that, you know, Denny putting trust in me, I generally in my career, it's grace under pressure, and there was a lot of pressure here. And then the pressure was definitely tripled and quadrupled, because Denny is he's got he's still very good friends with Paul, and he's a responsible adult. So he did what any responsible adult would do and text Paul and said, hey, I found this guy who wants to do a new version of Ram. He could get all the original sounds. I'm going to drum on it. Is it cool if we do this? And Paul texted back, and he showed me the text and said, sounds great. Have fun. And those 4 words fueled the entire project, because now it's serious, because, whoa, he's going to hear this. So, you know, at the risk of making complete fools of ourselves, it drove us to definitely take this project to the next level and spend all the extra time finding the right singers, doing real strings and real horns, using real keyboards, getting Dave Spinoza, finding Marvin Stamm, which Denny had not been in touch with for 45 years, you know, and finding his website and finding a little thing that said contact me, and reconnecting with him, and then teaching him how to record on his phone, because this whole thing was done at the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, you know, originally my idea was to do a show, but obviously COVID turned it into an impossibility. So we made an album. But we were getting files from everywhere, from Mark Murdoch in Japan to Robert Horvath in Germany to, you know, England, everywhere in America, Jody Quine in Canada. So over 100 musicians on this record. And back to the whole, like, you know, typical tribute thing, you know, a lot of people are going to be like, well, I don't recognize a lot of the names on this. Well, our goal is that people are going to discover their new favorite artists through this. And everybody who's on this record is not just a Beatles fan, not just a Paul fan, not just a Wings fan. These are people that Ram is in their DNA. They didn't have to learn these songs. They didn't have to like look them up on YouTube and say, oh yeah, I could sing this. No. These are songs that, I mean, I first heard the record when I was 8 years old. you know, the Beatles is something that you're introduced to, you know, when you're very young. I gave my son his first Beatles CD when he was 6, you know, and it's like, it's one of those things that it's a companion, a life companion. And everybody on this record has their own stories of when they first heard Ram. It's a record that sticks with you. And
I think a lot of the people on there, though, I mean, because I know you and I've worked with you, I recognize a lot of names. They're friends of mine as well, and it's nice to have the bring people in who you know you can trust. You go, I don't have to worry about what he's going to do because I picked him and I know what he can do. And that's
I didn't want to look like a noob in front of Denny Seiwell, but he was super impressed. And you know, that's the thing, is that we learned a lot of there's a lot of scientific stuff that happened on this record. So I immediately thought, all right, who are the high singing guys I know? But Paul is superhuman. And the thing that's superhuman about him as a singer is that he could sing very high, full voice with balls. And there's a lot of high singing guys in the power pop world, especially, that sing high, but they sound kind of cartoonish or kind of thin. And it was like really hard to, you know, find guys that could be belting like Paul. And we were lucky that we were able to find people like Timmy Shawn, Eric Dover, freaking Dan Rothschild, guys that could, Brentley Gore, guys that could, like, for example, Brentley Gore. So, Backseat of My Car. It's a hard song to sing because it's a ballad
and a
for the first 4 minutes with a lot of emotion, and then Paul's screaming his guts out the last minute of the song. And we had some people, they were able to do the ballad portion fantastic, and then when they went to go scream, they're singing in falsetto, and that didn't work. Or they had to change the key, or they had to, you know, resolve to, you know.
But here's the thing, though, with McCartney, you're trying to fill the shoes of someone who can sing very softly, and then at the very end be screaming, but still in tune and everything else, as he was on Hey Jude.
The same,
and that's
guy,
all in one song.
The same guy who sang Yesterday, you know, and Here, There, and Everywhere is the same guy who sang Helter Skelter, Oh Darling. You know, I mean, God, this is the most, you know, definitely the just like the most versatile dude in the Beatles for sure. And
well, you know, in Liverpool we'd say he's quite talented.
Paul was at his peak during Ram. Oh wait, Denny's talking. Hey,
let me give a quick cliff note about Backseat of My Car. Brentley Gore, he's a buddy of mine that used to live here in LA, and I did some demos with him. He's a very talented guy. Just never caught on to the labels in those days at the time. But he moved to Nashville, so I hadn't seen him in a while. And when we needed somebody, you know, I thought, hey, let me give Brentley a shot at this because he's really good. So I said, would you like to try, you know, Heart of the Country? Because you live in Nashville. So I thought, Heart of the Country. So he listened to it and he said, yeah, that's nice, but I really want to do Backseat of My Car. I went, yeah, really? Think you got the chops to pull that off? He said, I think I can do it, man. I said, all right. So the night before he put his vocals down, he tested positive for COVID. He gets the positive test. The next morning he gets up and he does the whole thing before it hits him. Then he went through the
passion
and his family, and nobody was harmed. You know, they went through it effortlessly, let's say, but he got all the vocals down before he got sick.
And oh my God,
Denny, you must have listened to the vocals on this Ram On album, and because you were there on the original, and you must have heard, I mean, how versatile Paul's voice was. How difficult was it for you to maybe just stand aside and go, this is going to be Paul, not Paul, sorry, this is going to be such and such a person singing Paul's song?
That was difficult because here's where I got to hand it to Fernando again. Every track where I had to make a decision on the vocal, we had 3 great performances.
Sometimes 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we would narrow it down, and then I'd have to make that final call. I had to be the bad guy there. These were Fernando's friends. I didn't know them from Adam.
Yeah. Do you think that gave you a bit of an edge to that because you didn't know them? You're just being honest and so, well,
yes, we were looking for one thing, and that was it was the spirit with which Paul sang that stuff. And certain guys got that part, and then when you heard it, you said, "That's it. I don't want to hear any more on this. This
Yeah.
guy did the job."